September 11th, 2009, I come home in the evening. It was a Friday, and I find my son who's drawing his last breaths. And that night he passed away. He was 24 years old. I remember I was coming back from the hospital 4 o'clock in the morning, and in a taxi I was beside myself. But I remember, in the midst of all the shock and the chaos that I was experiencing inside of myself, I remember turning to God and saying to God, the only way it occurred to me that I can accept this is if I know that there is a higher purpose. And this last 4 years have been my journey to discover this higher purpose. My son's passing was the most devastating thing I could have ever experienced. And it was as if I died as well, emotionally, psychologically, in a lot of ways spiritually as well. It was as if I was uprooted and thrown into space. You know when they say that when you die, your life flashes before your eyes? That's what it was like, except that it wasn't just a moment. It lasted a few weeks and months, where I went through this process, where I journeyed throughout my whole life, from the beginning of my life till that present time. Everything that I had experienced, all my traumas, all my conditioning, my sense of self, where I abandoned myself, my true self, and became the lesser self, all my patterns in the past, my belief system, everything was coming up in this space, in this chaos, in this eruption, including, the mistakes that I made, especially the mistakes that I made as a mother. And it was beyond my control. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. There was no one to save me. I had a lot of support around me, a lot of love, and yet this was my own personal journey. I had to do this by myself. And when I couldn't go anywhere except having to face all of this that was coming up, I had no other choice but surrender. I remember I prayed a lot. I prayed to a higher power. I prayed to God. I prayed to the Great Mother to help me, to support me, to guide me. I remember I was seeing myself, the wounded me, the mother that was grieving for her lost son. And I also saw the child in me that wanted to be held, wanted to be comforted by, my mother, but my mother was already gone. There was this other part of myself that was coming, that I felt like it was coming from inside of me. It was part of me because I was experiencing it as well. That was seeing myself, was seeing, observing, and I felt so much compassion for the grieving part of me, the mother and the grieving mother, and also for the child who was lost. And there was this compassion for myself. It was like, it really opened my heart. It opened my heart a lot, very deeply. It was, I was the one that was able to emotionally embrace myself, the grieving me. There was this immense, deep love that I felt, that I experienced, because I could see that through the layers of all the conditioning of my sense of self as I had known up to that moment, and through the grief, there was like, I could see deep the depth of my being. And what I discovered, what was there, was just this deep sense of compassion and love. It wasn't easy, but that love, it was my saving grace. And that became the beginning of what I call my rebirth. In 2012, I started writing poetry. And the poetry was coming from this connection to this deeper love that I discovered in the midst of the chaos and the ruins, when the most precious thing was taken away from me. And so all the poetry that I wrote were about really this experience of deep transformation. They're about the beloved love that I found inside of myself. The impulse, the desire for wanting me to share, it's like a deep desire, a deep need that I have to talk about this, that I have to share my experience, my poetry, because I feel that it is really about what we're here to experience. It is about awakening, and the irony of it, it was like that my deepest, my truest awakening happened in the most devastating moment. It was like that, yin and yang. In death, I found life, the real life, not the illusion of life. That is really love. It's still hard. I still miss my son, but I'm at peace with myself, with him, and with everyone else involved. And I can even experience happiness and joy now, because I found that the true, that inside of myself. So I think this is worth sharing.